Hello, it's Saturday the 10th of January. You're tuned into our late night newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story tonight: 4 people have been killed and scores injured in an apartment building fire in Uijeongbu, north of Seoul. Authorities say the fire, which broke out just before 9:30 a.m. and spread to some nearby buildings, took 160 firefighters more than 2 hours to bring under control. Of the 4 people who died, 3 were women, 2 in their 20s, the other in her 60s, and a man in his 40s. At least 10 of the 100 people who were injured are said to be in critical condition, suffering from severe smoke inhalation. It has emerged that 2 of the 3 buildings that suffered fire damage were not equipped with sprinklers, as buildings that are 10 stories tall or lower are not legally obliged to have them in Korea. Residents were seen escaping by climbing down the outside of the buildings, with some even jumping to adjacent apartment blocks. The police have confirmed the blaze started from a 4-wheel motorcycle parked by a mailbox on the first floor. Now, CCTV footage shows the fire started moments after a man living in the building spent around a minute or so doing something to the bike. Police are still questioning him about his actions. North Korea has offered to temporarily refrain from nuclear testing if the United States calls off its annual military drills with South Korea this year. The country's state-run Korean Central News Agency said in a release on Saturday that its offer was relayed to Washington on Friday, without mentioning the specific channel of communication. Pyongyang said the annual drills are the main source of tension on the Korean peninsula, and it was time for the US to make a bold decision for peace and stability. There has been no official response from the US government yet, however. Seoul and Washington have continued to hold these drills, such as the one you can see there, despite the aggressive rhetoric that comes out of Pyongyang prior to and while they take place. North Korea has conducted 3 nuclear tests so far, with the latest coming in February 2013. An American lawmaker has introduced a bill to Congress calling for North Korea to be put back on its list of state sponsors of terrorism. Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen submitted the North Korea Sanctions and Diplomatic Non-Recognition Act of 2015 along with 4 other members of Congress. Ros-Lehtinen says that while recent events such as the Sony Pictures hacking reaffirmed the nature of the regime in Pyongyang, evidence has been building for years that North Korea should have never been taken off the list in the first place. The congresswoman added that North Korea remains a threat to its neighbors and the US. She said it was clear that Pyongyang feels emboldened and Washington must respond by enforcing and applying stricter sanctions. The George W. Bush administration took North Korea off the terror list in 2008. Now, there was a bloody and violent end to France's 3-day-long terror nightmare. Amid extraordinary scenes around Paris, the suspects in the Charlie Hebdo attack were killed, and a hostage taker at a Jewish supermarket in the French capital was also shot dead by police, but 4 hostages unfortunately lost their lives. At least 1 accomplice is still on the run, so fears remain that more attacks could be in the works. Song Ji-son reports.
The 2 brothers wanted for the bloody attack on the office of French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo were killed on Friday. Sherry Kwatsi and his brother Saeed, who murdered 12 people in Wednesday's attack, were gunned down when police forced them out of a printworks northeast of Paris, where they had spent most of the day holed up with a hostage. That hostage managed to escape with his life, but 4 other hostages at the second siege in northeast Paris were not so lucky. Minutes after the print shop assault, police blasted their way into a Jewish supermarket and took down Ahmedi Koulibaly, who murdered a policewoman on Thursday. Reports say Koulibaly had killed 4 hostages before the police raid. The authorities are still hunting Ayat Boumediene, the partner of Koulibaly. The 26-year-old was with Koulibaly when a female police officer was killed and is described as armed and dangerous. Altogether, 17 innocent victims have died, along with the 3 hostage takers since Wednesday. The gunmen had previously said they were funded by al-Qaeda, and the Yemeni branch of the terror group has also claimed they played a role in the scheme. French President François Hollande has warned that the danger facing France is not over yet and asserted that national unity is France's best weapon against radical extremists.
We must be capable to respond to attacks by force that we are forced to use, but also by solidarity. This solidarity, we must show it always. We are a free people who give in to no pressure, who is not afraid.
France is planning a unity rally on Sunday with European leaders, and authorities are trying to prevent a rise in negative sentiment against France's large Muslim community. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, the tail of the ill-fated AirAsia plane that crashed into the Java Sea has been retrieved from the water, but the aircraft's data recorders were not in the recovered wreckage. Indonesian officials say they are worried the signal from the black box will be lost, but the main focus continues to be on the recovery of the passengers. After battling powerful underwater currents and near zero visibility for days, Indonesian Navy divers were finally able to tie special lifting balloons to the tail section and lift it onto a search ship, as you can see there. Officials think the impact of the plane smashing into the sea detached the recorders from their original housing in that tail section. A total of 48 bodies have been recovered out of the 162 people on board the flight, which have been travelling from Surabaya, Indonesia to Singapore when it crashed on December 28th. President Park Geun-hye has accepted the resignation of her senior secretary for civil affairs. The aide in question, Kim Junghan, had refused to testify before the National Assembly over a recent document leak scandal involving some of the president's closest advisors. The presidential office of Cheongwade says Kim has already been removed from his position. Kim was suspected of intervening in the prosecution's probe into allegations sparked by the leak of a presidential document in late November that supposedly revealed a power struggle between President Park's former aide, Jung Yoon-hwae, and her younger brother, Jiman. Prosecutors later ruled those allegations were completely groundless. Now, how long can you stand just on one leg alone? A study claims that if you can't do it for more than 20 seconds, it could be a sign that you're at risk of having a stroke later in your life. Our Son Jung-in has more.
Doctors conducted a test in which they asked two people to each balance on one leg. One patient has suffered from a past stroke, while the other has maintained a healthy lifestyle. The patient who had suffered stroke started to lose balance after 10 seconds and failed to stand for more than 20 seconds. Meanwhile, the other person stood firm and continued on for more than a minute.
In the past, I could not move the right side of my body since it was entirely paralyzed.
A group of Japanese researchers had 1,400 men and women, average age 67, try the balancing act and later took pictures of their brain. The result of the analysis found that 34% of participants with more than 2 infarctions experienced difficulty balancing on one leg for longer than 20 seconds. The study also revealed that the inability to balance was linked with minor small vessel damage in the brain. The more problems they had in their brain blood vessels, the less time they could stand on one leg.
For stroke patients, a part of the brain that is responsible for physical activities is damaged, making their ability to walk or balance themselves relatively low.
It is important to detect silent strokes in the early stages since it can later lead to severe strokes. A simple test may actually save you from more severe complications. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, in some sports news, South Korea has gotten off to a winning start at the 2015 AFC Asian Cup in Australia, beating Oman 1-0. On a rainy Saturday afternoon in Canberra, South Korean striker Jo Young-chol scored the only goal on the stroke of half-time as he latched on to that rebounded shot. South Korea take on Kuwait in their next Group A match, again in Canberra. That game kicks off at 4 p.m. Korea time on Tuesday. This year, Korea marks the 70th anniversary of its liberation from Japanese colonial rule, and over the last 7 decades, the nation has taken great strides, not only economically and socially, but in sport as well. Our Kim Ji-yeon has a rundown.
In 1976, Korean wrestler Uijeongbu brought home the country's first ever gold medal at the Montreal Olympic Games.
건국이 후 처음으로 몬트리올 올림픽 광장에 애국가가 울려 퍼졌습니다. 수많은 교포와 온 국민의 열광 속에 우리의 힘을 세계에 떨쳤습니다.
The medal signaled a new era of sports in the country. Since then, Korea has raked in a total of 107 Olympic gold medals. It has maintained a top 10 ranking over the years, thanks mainly to its strengths in archery, judo, wrestling, and short track speed skating. Heroes emerged in the non-popular events as well, with athletes like Hwang Young-jo in marathon, Park Tae-hwan in swimming, and Kim Yeon-ah in figure skating opening up a new chapter in their respective fields.
서울 올림픽 대회를 개최한 것을 선언합니다.
The event in 1988 helped Korea change the world's perception of the country from one that was suffering from war to one that was advancing economically. And 14 years later, Korea was at the center of the sports world again at the 2002 FIFA World Cup. Global sports star players like Park Chan-ho, Park Se-ri, and Park Ji-sung played their part in promoting the country as a sports powerhouse. Next up is the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, during which Korea aims to demonstrate its true value in sports through harmony and wisdom. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, before we go, taking a brief look at the weather here in Korea, and most of the country is under clear skies tonight. We're going to see the temperature drop to -3 degrees Celsius overnight. Here in Seoul, Sunday is going to be a bright day across much of the peninsula, with the high topping out at 2 degrees Celsius here in the Korean capital. Now, for those of you watching us overseas, here's the weather in your part of the world. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest news, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.co.kr/news. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.